Hey guys, today we're doing a very basic intro to carving the female mouth. If you followed along in the previous sections, this is a follow-up to that. If you haven't, welcome. Hopefully this is a helpful way for you to kind of break down the steps of carving the upper lip, lower lip, chin, jaw structure. And we're kind of doing a basic intro into that. If you're trying to advance your skills and do a more advanced or professional version of what we're doing here today, check out my online school in the link below. I also have beginner projects there, but intermediate and advanced stuff as well for refining your skills in carving the realistic face. Let's get into it. All right, now let's get into this. Listen to the beautiful sounds of the outdoors. All right, so I'm gonna start with a proportional marking, and I'm gonna use the bottom of the nose to the bottom of the top of the brow ridge as it meets the eyeball, so this kind of brow ridge area. And I'm gonna go down that length there, that distance, excuse me. I'm gonna make a marking here. And this is gonna give me a general idea of where the chin is. So I'm gonna come in with my knife here, making a V cut, two cuts that are opposing one another, essentially there to define the bottom of the chin. Okay, we're just gonna keep cutting that down, just like so. Now I'm going a little bit aggressive here. You don't have to cut that hard as I am, or that quickly remove quite as much material. All right, now the goal here is to get the structures of the mouth set in, and really you can do a few cuts and really make a lot of shapes happen very quickly. And yeah, this knife it's seen better days. It's not quite as sharp as I'd like it to be, but I have a strop nearby. I can always touch it up. I can always bring the strop over and touch it up, and that's something that is common, and not very common in videos, but common in reality, that you need to strop your tools. So keep that strop nearby and keep that honed. All right, so we've defined the bottom of the chin, and you're saying to yourself, well, Alec, we haven't started carving the mouth yet, but we will. We will. We just need to get that chin marked out. So I've cut in about about half an inch of depth there at this chin area, and I'm going to come back yet even maybe just a little bit further, because we're going to be taking this mound down quite a bit here. Okay, so as far as the mouth is concerned, typically the upper lip cascades over the lower lip, especially on the female face. So I'm going to pare down this chin area with my knife, and that should be easy because we're cutting down, flaking the grain off here. All right, just like that, just like so. Should look like that when we're done. Might come back a little bit further yet. Okay, so we've got that plane. Now we're going to make a couple of markings here. The first marking is a marking that defines the separation between the upper and lower lip, and the other is the chin, transition of the chin to the lower lip. Now if you notice, these two lines are equidistant from one another and divide this area into thirds. So we've got 1, 2, 3 spaces here, and this is a good kind of baseline for us to define the shapes of the mouth and the chin. So let me just make sure and double check that. Okay, I thought so. We're a little long. See, it's always good to double check, right? So I'm actually going to bring this chin down a little bit more. It's always good to have a little extra. I always like to start out with a little extra. Okay, so I'm going to come back a little bit, and I thought so by looking at it. In other words, you do want that chin not be too much longer than the length of the nose to the brow ridge. Okay, and that's fine right there. So I'm going to make 3 cuts defining the chin. One characteristic of the female face that differs from the male is the chin is not as pronounced. It's not as large, it's not as meaty, and the mandible or the jawline is usually more angled, angled upward. It has less of a prominence, of a squareness to it. So you can see already as I'm coming in to define the chin, I'm really hiking that angle up, and that's going to give it a feminine quality, just like that. All right, so let's redefine those thirds, because we did change our baseline here. Okay, I'll try that again. A little bit higher up. There we go. All right, that's about right. Maybe a little bit lower. Something like that. All right, first thing I'm going to do, create a groove. You can pick any one or either of these two. I usually start with the mouth. Make a V-cut along this line, just like so. Okay. And this is a traditional V-cut in that both angles pretty much match one another. Hopefully you can see that clearly. Yep. And I'm not going in with a ton of depth here, maybe going in with less than an 1/8 inch, maybe a 1/16 inch. I'm going to do the same thing over this line. So Ving on either side of this second line, this dividing third, or the second third line, between the second and the third, I guess is another way of putting that. Okay, I'm going to take this down a little bit. Kind of a V-cut in there. There we go. Okay, and we're done. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to start to round the mound of the mouth now and the chin. All right, so I've got these markers in place. I'm going to take the corners of the mouth down like so. Boop. Boop. All right. Okay. And the real goal here is to make sure the chin is not so broad. And again, we talked about this before a second ago, but the chin does not need to be very broad on the female face. You know, some women have wider, broader chins than others, and that's makes for an interesting difference in portraiture. But we're just going for the simplest, most kind of typical female characteristics, and that is that kind of higher, smaller jaw. So I'm taking that angle over, like so, and I'm going to cut in. Sometimes it's helpful to do pull cuts. I like pull cuts a lot, so if I can turn the piece of wood upside down and do a controlled pull cut to that chin with a stop cut at the chin, can make things a lot easier, I think. Just getting some extra depth underneath the chin, by the way. Okay. All right. Now I've just kind of taken the chin back. I've angled the sides of the chin by coming in like so. Here's a top view. It might be a little easier to see what I'm doing here. Like so. Boop. I'm going to establish a center line just to be safe here. Okay. All right, so I'm looking for that upper lip to just a little bit overhang or stick out a little further rather than the upper lip, or than the lower lip, sorry. Next I'm going to kind of cut around or create an angled cut on each side, the outside of the mouth. And you know, there's a rule about how to define the distance or the width of the mouth from one corner to the other. And there's also some substructures in there, but usually we go the center of the eye. We have some wide eyes here. This is definitely a caricature, guys. Less a perfectly realistic face, more of a caricature. But either way, the center line of the eye drawn down typically gives us an idea of where the mouth ends. The corners or the oral commissures live right in this corner here, and what that is an indentation. We've talked about it on the male mouth video, and so a lot of the same steps here. Biggest difference with the female lips is a lot of times you're going to see a more prominent and full upper lip with a bit more of a fall off. So in other words, notice how I'm using the tip of this blade to carve the sides of the mouth down into what we're calling the corners of the mouth here and here. Okay, so those little areas. So I'm taking the knife and I'm actually cutting into the oral, from the top of the upper lip into the oral commissure, just like so, right? And notice how it makes this sort of pyramid. Female lips traditionally have a more broad and more pyramid shaped. I like to think of it as a more pyramid shaped type upper lip, fuller. And then the lower lip will come across, typically a little bit fuller than the male. So I'm going to come underneath that lip with some V-cuts, the lower lip that is, some nice soft V-cuts, meaning The angles aren't very steep, like so. Come in like so there. And this would be a great time if you had a small gouge, say a 3mm number 9. You could come in the inside corners and carve the oral commissures. And these again are the little grooves that live right at the edges of the lip. But since I don't have that, I'm going to use my knife and anchor my knife in the center of the corner and just do a little turnabout there, just like so. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. A little roundabout, and this is kind of a hard step, and you want to make sure you're not angling your knife too much. And you want to just stick that blade in and give it a twirl. And what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself the ability to turn that lower and upper lip into that oral commissure. Okay, now this makes sure that the lips don't appear to be just on the surface. They're actually set within the face, which is very important. So you want to get those oral commissures set in. Again, if you had a little veiner or a number 9, you could just scoop out those little cuts on either side of the lips, but you can already see how that's kind of setting the lips into the face a little bit more, making it look more three-dimensional. Okay. Okay, so my background here as a carver is definitely not in whittling. I'm a gouge carver mostly. I use a lot of knives in my gouge carving, but I'm using a lot of larger hand tools. And when I use a knife, it's a really great exercise in minimalism, and it's a great reminder that you can get so much done. So much of the stuff that I do with my gouges you can do with just one tool, and that comes up in my carving as well. I see that a lot, that I don't need as many tools as I think I do. Okay, so now I'm defining the sides of the chin, and I'm coming in. Let's see, the total face here is about 2 inches from the top of this hairline to the bottom of the chin. And I'm defining about 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches from one side to the other, the widest point. But I'm going to taper this chin down a little bit, like so, from the cheekbone. So I'm actually kind of defining the sides of the face with another V-cut. So important to get this V-cut down, guys. Beautiful sounds out there. We're in full summer swing here now. It's just like super warm and beautiful out, which is so welcome, so welcome. Welcome summer. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take this chin down because we talked about how the female chin tends not to be as prominent as the male. And sometimes I'll leave a little extra material on the chin just so I can come back at the end and shorten it up a little bit. Make sure it's not too broad and that it's nice and feminine. That's what we want. Not too strong. And these are all generalizations. Some women have broader and stronger chins. You know, my wife, for instance, doesn't have she has a very feminine jawline. It's a nice angle, high angle, but the actual jaw itself is defined, which is very wonderful quality in a female face. She's a beautiful girl, and but that's not necessarily the most typical. So there's a lot of variation that you can get away with and have a lot of fun in your carvings when you're carving the female face. There's no just kind of one size fits all, but there are generalizations, and we make those generalizations just to give you a guide. Okay, so when you start out, it's probably good to stick with those, learn those, and then you can go to trying other things. So right now I'm just kind of making another V-cut underneath the chin, just to make sure it's nice and separated from the piece of wood, just so I want this to stand out nicely. All right. It's amazing how just a couple of cuts can transform this face. I mean, you started out with kind of an odd-looking little carving, and you start developing the features, and eventually it becomes this character that you didn't even know existed in that piece of wood. That's really fun. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit more off. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just taking more off of the sides of the cheeks, paring them down a little bit. All right, guys. that's the gist of it. I mean, I could really take this a lot further, and I do take that a lot further in the online school. You can check that out in the link below. I go into all different types of strategies for achieving more realistic upper and lower lips, and how to carve realistic portraits in wood, young and old, and more on the realistic side of things. So if that interests you, check out the online school and the link below. And without further ado, I'm going to let you guys go. Just carving the fill trim, by the way. If you have a little gouge, this is a great opportunity to do that, but I'm just doing a little scoop cut there for the fill trim. Okay guys, see you in the next one. I'm going to clean this up with a little bit of sandpaper. Excuse my bumping of the microphone there. Clean off these lines. We will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.